All right, my name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Bailey Meyer. It's August 7th, 2025, and we're at Proteus in Newberg. Bailey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
First question, let's get things started with why wine?
Wasn't actually a dream of mine for a long time. I worked in bank regulatory compliance for about 20 years. My husband was in civil engineering for 20 years, and we both sat behind computer screens for a very long time, and we always had a dream to move out to the Pacific Northwest from Philadelphia, which is where we were from. And about 2 years ago, he passed away, and I decided that I wanted to live that dream. Did I have a dream of becoming a winery owner or a winemaker? No. But my real estate agent brought me to this property, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the people who are already involved in it and the neighborhood. And so I decided I'd take a shot and make a career change and see if I could make this happen. So.
It's a pretty drastic change. We'll come back to that in a minute. Let's talk about life before wine a little bit. Tell us about where you're born and raised and kind of path into your first career.
Yeah, born in Kansas, raised in Colorado. I came from a split family. My parents got divorced and then both got remarried, lived in separate states. And so I spent most of my time in Colorado. And visited my dad occasionally in Kansas. And then after I graduated college from my undergrad from University of Colorado Boulder, I decided I wanted a change. There was an opportunity in Philadelphia, and I decided to take it. And met my husband 2 years later, and studied finance and accounting, graduated my undergrad when I was 19. So I finished my 4-year degree in 2 years, and just jumped right into a career.
2 years.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Tell me about what you were thinking, what you were looking for coming out of college.
I knew I wanted, my parents always taught me that banking and finance were surefire ways to create stability, financially and otherwise. So that's what I pursued. I found that I was really good at math, and I enjoyed finance, and I enjoyed the business management side of things. And so that's what I spent my focus on.
So tell me about the first opportunity coming out of school.
It was a consulting job, working for multiple different banks. We were brought in to basically solve regulatory problems. So if a bank had misstepped or broken a law, and they were facing significant fines, or they were facing a regulatory action, and they didn't have the staff or the people or the skill sets, they would hire consultants to come in and help problem solve and implement whatever needed to be done, so that they could get out from underneath the regulatory eye. It was really exciting because very quickly I got a lot of opportunities to work on some very high-profile front page projects, and I really liked that. And also, the projects had a start and an end to them. So. And there was a lot of variety in what we were doing. So for example, in one instance, a company that I worked for, or that I was consulting with, was going bankrupt, and I was selling artwork off the walls. Another one, a company messed up a certain regulation and had foreclosed on active military fighting in Afghanistan, and those people lost their houses. So my job was to go out and buy them new houses because that was the only way to make them whole again. So just kind of ran the gamut of different types of regulatory problems and solutions. So,
how long did it take you to feel comfortable in that kind of role with that wide variety? How long till you're confident going into a situation that you can solve it?
I think it depended on the type of project. It also depended on the culture of the client. I found that most people don't hire consultants because they want to. They hire them because they have to. So you often can enter into kind of a somewhat adversarial environment, but over time you start to learn and adapt as to how to work with those types of people. So I would say it took a couple of years, but I had some really great mentors and I had some really great teachers who held my hand and knew what they were doing and had been doing it for far longer than I. So I just absorbed what they had taught me and told me, and
Where did your career go from there?
I did that for 20 years. I mean, I jumped around from a couple of different consulting firms, but I pretty much stayed in the same genre. Before my husband passed, I was working with fintech startup companies, building compliance programs. So, making sure that these non-banking institutions who were lending, who were doing all the things that a bank really does, were establishing a way to protect the customer from predatory lending or misleading customers and what their products were intended to do. And I really enjoyed that. Because I felt like no longer was I working or consulting with large banks, that just have, endless amounts of money to throw at and, millions and millions of customers, but actually these small startups that were, maybe 30 people that were trying to innovate something different. So, how could you finance rent inter-month? That was one thing. Utilizing crypto, and how do you manage crypto? So those were the types of projects I really started to evolve into. Yeah.
Tell me about meeting your husband.
I met Jerry when I was 22. We were both swimmers when we were younger, and I moved to Philly a year prior. I knew I wanted to get into exercise again. I had taken a little bit of time, and I joined an adult masters swim league for LGBTQ people. And the swim coach on my very first day saw me and grabbed me by the hand and walked me right over to Jerry and literally just said, "Jerry, this is Bailey. Bailey, this is Jerry." And we had swim practice that day, and we went to dinner afterwards as a group. Jerry and I sat across from each other, and we both had laughed about it for so many years. We can't remember who else was there. We were just so focused on our conversation and the fun that we were having, and became pretty much an instant connection. So, and we had been together ever since. So, total of 15 years, 7 together, and then 7 married, just because when we first met it wasn't legal. And then we waited a year after it became legal, and we got married. So,
you mentioned that the Pacific Northwest was a shared dream. Tell me about why that was.
We'd both lived in city life for so long. We wanted to get out into nature. We wanted to do something else. We didn't know where in the Pacific Northwest. We had traveled to Seattle a couple of times. We really liked it. But we felt that and I'm not knocking Seattle, but we just felt like it was another big city just on an opposite coast, and we didn't want that. So after he passed, I went back to Seattle and looked at it, and then rented a car and drove down to Portland, and I fell in love with it. I thought it was a very different place. Like I said, on a whim, my real estate agent called me up and he goes, I have this strange idea, bear with me. I'm going to take you out to see this property. And we just drove up and I fell in love with it. And I was kind of like, this is exactly what I was looking for, without knowing that this was what I was looking for.
So before coming here, tell me about sort of your relationship with wine. Were you interested in wine at all?
Yeah, I mean, aside from multiple trips to Napa with friends, I had traveled quite a bit. One of our honeymoon, we went to Bordeaux, France. As part of my MBA program, I got to go to Lisbon in Portugal and study wine there for several weeks under a professor who's still a mentor, and I reach out to quite a bit to just help me navigate what I'm doing. We also went to Madeira, which is off the coast of Portugal, but they make a very almost butterscotch sweet dessert wine. Germany. I got a chance to go to Germany, particularly the Rhine region where they grow Gewürztraminer and Riesling. All throughout France, been to the Champagne regions multiple times. Argentina, love a Malbec, you can't go wrong with that. Spain, just simple red table wine, delicious. But yeah, it really was, I selected all of the electives in my MBA program that allowed me to study the wine industry more. So I knew I liked it. I knew I was very interested in it. Did I dream that I would own a winery and a vineyard? No, but here I am.
So before getting into it that way, tell me about, you mentioned obviously kind of scheduling your MBA program around sort of the wine places you wanted to explore. What attracted you about wine as a consumer? What was exciting to you about it? What made you want to explore it at that level?
I actually got into wine from a friend of mine just after college. She was a sommelier for the Melting Pot, and she had introduced me to all sorts of different wines. And I remember the two that I really, really loved are actually here in Oregon, Domaine Drouhin and Ponzi, which is just right across the way from me. I just love them. I liked the lighter flavor. I liked the delicacy of the grape, and I liked it was something different than just a really bold Napa cab. So that's how I really got into wine. And then Jerry and I scheduled a lot of trips, our vacations, things like that, around wine. One of the trips that we took was in France, and we went around. We had a driver that took us for 4 days all across different parts of France, and had these local connections with the actual owners and the winemakers themselves, and being able to see how they made wine and how every place was different, I thought was fascinating. You know, you can create delicious wine in multiple different ways. In one instance, I don't know if you've seen the show I Love Lucy, but there is a guy in where was it? Saint-Emilion, who stomps grapes with his feet. Mm-hmm. And then there was another guy in Burgundy, and he had a bigger house and would just made everything in steel vats and pressed, and then making a sparkling wine or a champagne, those all are different. You know, you go to Moet and Chandon, and you have a riddling process where they've hired, 200 people that walk through the caves and every day just slowly rotate those bottles. Or you go to De Castellane and they have the big cages that shift them every day. So just so different.
So tell me about sort of the, I guess, before you lost Jerry, tell me about sort of what your relationship was with wine at that point, and how prepared did you feel when wine became something that was ready to take the next step with? Did you feel like you were prepared to be in wine?
I felt like I knew enough to be dangerous. But actually doing is something very different. So I had what I would call more than a surface knowledge, but I would never have called myself an expert. So that's also one of the reasons why I brought a team around me to help. So I know what my skill sets are when it comes to the winery, but they are, the masters. Bill, I call him the artist because he knows how to do it. And we have Valentine, who's the vineyard manager and tends to the grapes and knows exactly when and what to do with them at certain points of the year. And then I have Colleen, who runs all of our social media and marketing, and I run all of the finances, and I'll make a lot of the direct connections with businesses, sales channels, things like that. So we all kind of have our parts to play, if that makes sense. And I think that's how you build a good team.
You talked about being brought here, and tell me about your initial impressions. Tell me about the first time you visited the space.
This space, I thought it was absolutely stunning. I mean, coming down the driveway alone with the tree canopy, it was early spring. All of the rhododendrons were in full bloom. The clematis, bright pink, everything was just gorgeous. The vines themselves didn't look the way they did. They were probably about maybe 3/4 of that size. And they grow really, really fast. So I was a little bit like, okay, how much are we gonna get? Like, how is this actually gonna work? Like, what's the yield? Started going into those business questions in my mind. But as I've gotten a chance to walk the vines and learn a little bit more about how to care for them and everything, it's completely changed my perspective. But the property alone was just stunning enough for me. So.
What made you decide this was the thing to do?
I knew I didn't want to sit behind a computer all day, every day. I knew that would be fair to my husband. I knew that wasn't going to be fair to me. I knew I wanted to, it changed my perspective losing him, that I wanted to live a life that felt like I was doing something, like I was creating something that people would enjoy. And that was really kind of the impetus for me undertaking this. So, yeah.
Tell me about once you made the decision, once you bought the place. Tell me about the initial things you thought you had to do. What were the first things you had to deal with? What were the first things you had to learn or understand or do?
I knew that I needed a marketing person, because this vineyard, while it's been here for 26 years, is really relatively unknown, and had only been a very small batch production, so about 220 cases a year. Is what they were producing. So I knew that wasn't something that would be sustainable for this business. So I quickly started looking at, all right, how do we scale up? What do we need to do in order to hit certain thresholds so that we can get what we think the property deserves. So I created a 4-year plan. I am just rounding year 1. Some things advanced faster than others, and some things got backburnered. But we have our North Star, so we always try and stay true to that. We may get some new ideas that we want to jump on or what have you. And then I guess the other piece too is I really wanted this to be also a tribute to Jerry. So that's always been a really big component of wanting to do this. So I knew that one of the first things I wanted to do was continue the wine production, but expand it, and then create a wine that I felt was representative of us. Mm-hmm. So that's our legacy. It's a Vino Verde. It's the first wine that I made from grape to vine, or from vine to bottle. In Portuguese, Vino Verde means a green wine, and I don't mean that as the wine is green. I mean that as like if you were to hire somebody new and they don't know what they're doing, they would be green, as it were. Mm-hmm. And we called it Legacy. And the reason that I wanted to do that is because all of the proceeds is because when we went to Portugal together, we loved that wine. That was like our absolute favorite wine that we had tried traveling abroad. And and as part of that, I started an epilepsy research charity where all of the proceeds of the sales of that wine go to that charity. I had a really hard time after he passed finding a charity where funds actually went to medical research. There's very little done on the actual medical side of curing epilepsy. Medicines are still based off of 1960s animal models. Brain surgery always seems to be top of mind, but it's a hit or miss on the type of epilepsy that someone has. And so I wanted to make a contribution to actually directing the funds of the wine to where I thought it was going to be best used.
It's really impressive. How's that part gone?
Good. Yeah. We had the release party back in May. So we harvested in October, and we released it in May. It's made in steel barrels, but it comes out very fast. It's green wine. It's an early wine. Secondary to that, I knew that I needed to get something quick to market. A lot of the wines that were previously made here are, Pinot Noirs, things like that need to sit for longer, sit 3-4 years potentially before they come into their flavor. So I knew that if we were going to make this viable, I needed to get some things that could be out there for people and sort of bridge a gap until the other wines are ready to release. We don't just release anything too early. We want to make sure that it's got the proper flavors and tastes. So
let's talk about the property for a minute. You mentioned sort of kind of getting to know it now that you own it. Tell me about the property, the vines. What's special about it? What have you learned by your time spent on it?
Yeah. The house is built in the 1960s, so I've learned that there's a lot of maintenance and upkeep. I learned that this property really wasn't geared towards being a commercial property as such. There are other vineyards very close by that are what I term, and I don't mean this negatively, but I term as glass garage door wines. They all have these big glass garage doors and you get a very similar experience. And I wanted to create something very authentic. So one of the first things I did was I needed to create a space for customers to come and enjoy. So this patio that you're sitting in now didn't exist 2 months ago. So that was one of the first things. I wanted a place to gather. I wanted a place for people to come and sit and enjoy the afternoon and have a glass of wine. And yeah, otherwise we have a small indoor tasting room, but it fits about 8 people. So I knew I needed to expand that. And then when we realized, when I put my 4-year plan together, I knew there were thresholds that I was going to need to hit, and I knew that this facility wasn't going to be big enough. So that was kind of phase 2. So we're just about finished with adding 4,000 square feet to the vineyard. So pretty much, so in 2024. There was only about 220 cases, 2023, there was 220 cases made. 2024, we increased to about 800 cases. And this year, we're looking at doing, I think, close to 1,500 cases with the expanded. So, and that includes space, that includes equipment, that includes barrels, that includes grapes. The vineyard itself is about a little under 5 acres, so we are fairly small, with about 2.7 acres planted of grapes. And we decided that we also needed to source grapes from other vineyards. So we partner with about 5 or 6 different vineyards and buy about, last year I think we bought 18 tons of grapes, and I think this year we're going to buy closer to 25, 28. So, yeah. On the estate we grow, like I said, all of the vines are about 26 years old. Right behind you, you have Pinot Gris, which is a white grape. This was the first block that was planted. Fun fact, prior to 1999, this was actually a horse training stable. So this building that is right here, that's now our production facility, used to be the horse stable. And the block of Pinot Gris right behind me was actually where they trained the horses. So, and then over time, they expanded the vineyard behind the house. This is one of our smaller blocks. We have 2 other blocks of Pinot Gris, and then we have a block of Chardonnay, and then our largest block is about 1.5 acres of Pinot Noir.
Tell me about finding your team.
So I found Bill right away. Bill had been working with the property in various capacities for about a year before I purchased it. Bill also has his own brand, and so he rents and uses my equipment in the facility to produce his own wine, but we make very different wines. So that's kind of, and Bill and I have kept that business relationship, and he's taken over the responsibility as being the head winemaker for Proteus. Valentine came into picture through my neighbors. They had used him before, and he is a very nice guy. He's been working in the industry for 30 years. He's worked with, I don't know, anywhere between 8 and 12 vineyards, highly respected in the industry. and very efficient. So yeah, I think you may end up seeing him around. They're doing what's called dropping fruit today. Yeah, he usually brings a crew of like 12 out, and they just knock it out in a couple of hours and good to go. So, and then Colleen, who has been absolutely wonderful. I met Colleen in my MBA program. We met in Lisbon, and she worked for several very large companies in marketing and search engine optimization. And she said, "Hey, this is awesome that you're doing this. I'd love to get involved." And I said, "Great, you're the head of marketing." We printed business cards, and she's just run with it. So she runs all of our social media. She runs, she does all of the, she hired a person to support this, all of like the graphic design and everything that you would see. All of our events and event notifications. She also reaches out to various businesses to see if they would be interested in offering our wines in some capacity. But we kind of do that together. She has her channels, I have my channels, and we just kind of come together and see what fits with our North Star. So.
And you mentioned obviously the Vino Verde being kind of your first foray into being all throughout the process. Tell me about the experience for you of making wine, being part of the process, and having a finished product. What was it like for you? What were the surprises along the way?
It was a bit scary at first, just because it had such significance for what I was trying to do that I didn't want it to turn out a way that it wouldn't be representative of what we were looking for. So Bill was really excited to experiment with the Vino Verde. So we started with a small batch. We only did 2 steel barrels of it, which yielded about, 28 cases. So we didn't have a lot. What also scared me is we changed the label and the logo and the branding. So that was kind of like a relaunch for pretty much everything. We tasted it early on. It was very juicy. It was very delicious. I was really excited. And that was probably January timeframe. And then in March, right around March, late March, was when we were taking it out of the barrels and we were starting to put them into bottles. And I almost had a heart attack because it was coming out cloudy. And with a Vino Verde, you want it to have like a little yellow tinge color, but you don't want it cloudy. So we experimented. We only took a couple bottles out. We experimented with some different things, different treatment styles. And we finally found one that did it. And and then it turned out great. And during our launch party, we did very well with it. And people were very happy. It's a great summer wine. Goes really well with Thai food. One of Jerry's favorite foods. And it's just a great on your porch, Thai food night, or I always say, but if you also had a really long Tuesday, it also works. So and then just changing the label, changing the brand. The brand historically over the last 14 years, when it quasi became a commercial vineyard, the logos and the branding sort of changed, and they were different between bottles, and I felt like it lacked consistency. So this was my first attempt to try and see what people thought of the new branding. And if they liked it, then we were going to do that across everything. And yeah, and it was so well received that we are doubling our production of it this year.
Tell me about that, about approaching that kind of process. What did you want the branding, all that to represent?
I really wanted it to be clean. I wanted it to be something that wasn't all over the place. I spent a lot of time in grocery stores and wine shops and just walking up and down the aisles and looking to see what stood out to me, what didn't. And I just wanted it to be very clean and crisp and simple. Jerry was my mom called him a steady Eddie. He didn't like, like a big circus kind of thing. He liked things to be, clean and nice and pretty. And that's kind of what I wanted, like elegant. When we got married, we didn't have a theme, but the idea behind it was almost like a Gatsby style, just because we both felt like that was classy and elevated, and it's also one of our favorite books that we bonded over that too. So that was kind of the vibe that I wanted to go with, was just that, kind of timeless, classic elegance, I guess you could call it.
Did you consider changing the brand, the name?
No, I didn't. And the reason for that is Proteus is the son of Poseidon in Greek mythology. He is the god of sea tides and change. And when I say change, I don't mean changing the things around him, but being able to change himself. And I just thought that after losing Jerry, getting an RV, buying a vineyard, driving across country from Pennsylvania, and starting an entirely new career, I just felt like the name fit. So I didn't really have any interest in changing it. So I just wanted to reinvigorate the brand.
Tell me about your impressions as you've gotten to know Oregon and the wine industry here. What have been your impressions of the wines here and the people making them, and sort of your place in the industry?
I think all of the wines are great in their own different ways, and everybody has a lot of different styles of wines, different types of varietals of grapes. I think the only one that we sort of all produce is the Pinot Noir, but even that has some variety to it, depending on where you grow it and how you grow it. My Pinot Noir is considered a high altitude Pinot Noir, so all of the vines are above 800 feet in elevation, so they tend to have a lot more mineralness to them than, say, if you were to go down further into the valley, like in Dundee. You may get a different flavor of their Pinot Noir, but everybody makes a Pinot Noir. Where things differ is everything else. So there's very few people that make the Vino Verde. I think I've only come across one or two others. So there's room, there's definitely niches and room for you to kind of invent what you're looking for or what you want to create. We also do an Alsatian blend, which is 50% Pinot Gris, 50% Gewürztraminer. The Alsace blend comes from the Alsace region of France, which is right on the border of France and Germany. We don't make that one anymore because it is very hard to source Gewürztraminer in the valley. I know a lot of people say climate change isn't real, but we feel it very much in growing grapes. So it's just gotten a lot harder. I think if we would have to hunt a lot more if we were to try and remake that one. And then not everybody does a sparkling wine. We just launched our sparkling wine 2 weeks ago. But we did it a little bit differently. So we have a Blanc de Blancs, but it's an extra dry. Most of the Blanc de Blancs that are made around here are Brut, which is the driest kind. Ours is slightly sweeter. And then we're probably one of a handful of wineries that make an orange wine. It's called Ramato. And an orange wine is basically, it's 100% Pinot Gris. We grow it all on the estate here, but we treat it like a red wine. So when we pick it, we ferment it on its skins for about 18 hours, so it starts to get that red orangey color to it, and then we press it. So has nothing to do with oranges. It just it's the style of wine making, and not a lot of people make that. We don't make it anymore, but we did have a flip of that, where we took Pinot Noir and we would pick it and press it same day, so it spent no time on its skins. And it was a red grape that we made a white wine out of. So, yeah. So there's a lot of different varieties. You've got tons of different varietals. You have a lot of different clones that people graft and grow on the rootstock. So you could have like a T77 clone for Pinot Noir. You could have a Pommard clone, and they could be very different, but they're both Pinot Noir.
What comes next? What are you looking forward to? You mentioned obviously ramping production up this year. What else is on the horizon for your next few years of the plan? I think continuing to grow awareness, getting much more involved in the community. In the short term, we've got a couple of events in Newberg where we're going to be having a booth down for the first Friday next month, and then partnering with a restaurant on the 17th. We've already done some stuff with, I don't know if you're familiar with South Store Cafe, but we hosted a dinner with them. Yeah, and then I think for me, being LGBTQ, really trying to get more involved in, pride events and just local community support as well. So, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. And then in 3 or 4 years, I'd love to have this have even more expansion. Possibly having, a tasting room, in downtown Newberg or in Dundee or something, or even in Portland. But that's not on my 4-year plan. That's like on my 8-year plan. I got to stick to what I've committed to for my 4-year plan. So, yeah. But ideally, I'd love to have all of these tables filled, people just laughing and having a good time. We don't serve food, so I love it when people, bring their own food and sit out here. We've got a grill people can use and just enjoy, their time and hang out and just have this be like a little hideaway. What's been the biggest surprise to you about being in the wine industry?
How expensive it is.
It's a very common answer to that question.
Biggest surprise would be just how much science goes into making wine. It's not just picking grapes, throwing them in a bucket, letting them sit for a while or in a barrel, and then bottling it and then selling it. It's far more complex than that. our winemaker today is actually blending 3 different Pinot Noirs for us to try and see what we want one of the versions of the Pinot Noir to go out to market are. So, and some of the things that he's adding and all of that. So, there's a lot of science to it, and even in with the vines, I mean, how fast they grow and how many times we have to prune. You have to prune 5 times throughout the year. And as they grow, we have to lift the wires up, and then we have to hedge them. And today we're doing fruit drop, which is, we're going to cut probably 30% of the grapes that are growing today, so that we focus the sugars and the energy into those clusters that we think will make the best wine. So there's just so much involved. The fact that we're an organic winery and how we handle that, spraying a cinnamon derivative, as opposed to a harsh chemical on them, and combating mildew, and then we net the vines coming up in about 2 weeks to keep the starlings from eating all the grapes. Having to watch the migrating patterns, having to watch like meteorology patterns, so we know if we need to do something in advance to protect, the crop. So, yeah, there's so much science behind it that I think was the most surprising thing, and also the most fascinating thing for me. The other thing that was probably the most surprising is almost everybody that I've spoken to in the industry said that winemaking is 10% glamour, 90% mess. And you don't see that from the outside. You have no idea what goes into a single bottle of wine. So, yeah. And I learned that firsthand because when I moved out here in September last year, it was right for harvest. So I think I had 4 days to move into the house, and then we were in harvest. So
a crash course.
Yeah, exactly. In my previous career, they used to call it just sink or swim. So
welcome to the deep end. This is let's see how you do.
Yeah, along with a bunch of sharks.
You mentioned earlier having a North Star that you're aiming toward. Give me an idea of what that is, and what will make this a success for you. If you're looking back on Proteus, what will make this a success for you?
Yeah, so we all sat down as a team, and we wanted to define what we thought that North Star was. And we decided that we wanted it to be a 5-star experience, but we didn't want it to be like a Ritz-Carlton type 5-star experience. We wanted it to be intimate, and so like, for example, I don't have employees that run the tasting room. I'm the one that runs them all. And so when I get customers, I like to share the wines, and I like to share the stories about the wines, and I like to share the story about the property, and if they're interested, share my story. So, and it's, I think in a lot of other places, you might get like a flight, and you'll get all 4, and then, that's it, all at once. I don't do that. It's a very personal experience. I pour each one individually. You're going to probably spend an hour and a half here just chatting and learning about, the history of Proteus, the history of the Laurelwood AVA, my history. A lot of people like to know about my dogs, so I talk about them too. So. Yeah, but it's a very personal experience, and that's what we defined as our version of 5-star.
I feel like I have to ask about your dogs now.
Yeah.
Tell us about your dogs, Bailey.
Okay. I have a 14-year-old Shih Tzu Bichon. His name is Winston. We got him, I say we, Jerry and I, about 6 months into us first started dating. And yeah, he was our first dog. He's was very sweet. Now he's a little temperamental. The vet called him a geriatric dog lately. I took a little offense to that, but I get it. Medical term. And then and then we got Roscoe, who's a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. He's just a little guy. He's 6. That was a story. I told Jerry that I was interested in another dog, and I had taken the day off, and I was just gonna go look. Nothing was gonna happen. And he said, and I remember it to this day. He said, "Don't you dare bring home a dog, otherwise I will not be here when you get back." I was like, okay. So I brought my friend Maria so that she was like, "You're not doing this. You cannot upset Jerry that way. He will not go for it." He was very adverse to change. And sure enough, we get there, and this dog ran up to me right away. It was probably January, February. It was cold. It had been snowing. And he just jumped right inside my coat and curled up. And I was like, I can't, it's done. I'm gonna have to deal with the fallout. It's totally fine. So we get in the car, we're driving home, and I'm FaceTiming him. And I thought I had held the phone up high enough so he couldn't see. But Roscoe sold me out and just popped his head up a little bit, and Jerry goes, "What is that?" Lo and behold, probably a week later, melted in his hand, and he fell in love. So, and then after Jerry died, I didn't want to live alone in downtown Philly. There was a lot of if you guys remember the Black Lives Matter, George Floyd riots and things like that. I don't know if it was exactly George Floyd, but there was a couple of them. And being right downtown Philadelphia, and being alone, I didn't want. I wanted a little protection, a little bit of safety. So I got another dog. His name is Frankie, and he is a Chow Chow. And Chow Chows, Rottweilers, they sort of have these reputations of being, very aggressive, protective dogs. I will tell you, he's been through 6 weeks of boarded boot camp. And he's actually the sweetest dog. People are just afraid of Chow Chows, but he's a big softie. He's a big softie. So I don't know that any of my dogs would ever protect me should someone come here and try something. I'm pretty sure they would make best friends with any kind of burglar or robber. But yeah, they are my prides and joy, and occasionally I bring them up here and let them play around.
That's a good cohort, and I like that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I call them my fur mafia. Because I feel actually I'm the one that gets bullied.
Last question for you. Tell me about proudest accomplishment or biggest achievement so far. What are you, as you look back on where you are now, how you've gotten here, what is the proudest accomplishment?
I was going to say something tangible, but I don't think that that's true. I think the word that one of my friends used to describe me was perseverance. I think I've been through a lot, and there's certainly been some challenges with the winery, with moving out here, with losing Jerry and the dogs and things like that. But I'm proud that I keep moving on and keep looking for the next step and not moving backwards, if that makes sense. I went through some therapy after my husband died, and this really resounded with me. She said, Bailey, you can choose to live in the land of the dead, if that's what you want, or you can keep on living. And that's what I chose to do. So I'm proud of all of this, but I'm proud of still being me and keeping on moving through.
Fantastic. All the questions I have for you. Anything I didn't ask that I should have? Anything we didn't talk about today that you were hoping to talk about?
No, just we're open for the public Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 11 to 7 summer hours. Would love to have you.
Excellent. Good time to plug. I like that.
Couldn't resist the plug.
Exactly. It's an open mic. Thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your story with us, sharing this space with us. We'll go ahead and let you off the hook. Thank you.